Welcome to our Savvy series. I'm Catherine Magana here with Rachel Ivanovich, and today we're going to talk about how women are affected by wealth transfer taxes like estate and gift taxes, and some of the factors that shape these outcomes. So let's dig in. We're going to get started with number one. Women tend to have longer life expectancies, and so women typically live longer than men. And as of 2023, women live 5.3 years longer than men. But I kind of did a little research. I was looking at, for those that, in 2023, those that were born, men born in the U.S., their life expectancy was 75 years, 75.8, and women, it was 81.1. But if you look back in the early 1900s, the average life expectancy was 46.3 for men and 48.3 for women, which is kind of interesting. And then
it's extremely interesting.
I know. And then now, if you are a 65-year-old man in 2023, then your life expectancy is now extended 18.2 years to the age of 83.2. And if you're a 65-year-old woman in 2023, then you can expect to live an estimated 20.7 years.
Who came up with these stats?
I know, 85.7. So I guess what they're saying is that they look at all the different ratios, and so if you kind of get past a certain age, then your life expectancy. Yes. And
well, it's funny because my mom got hit. Remember, she got hit by a truck, and they told her, like, this is how long you're going to live.
Oh, goodness.
I know.
Well, and then we have a lot of clients and the clients' parents that are still alive, and we're seeing a lot of individuals living to 90s,
mid-90s,
and even 100. So I think there's.
Isn't your mom just celebrated a big birthday?
My mom did. So she just celebrated her 88th birthday. So
those pictures were fun.
Yes, every day is a blessing, and I just am happy to still have her with us. So with that, kind of some of those statistics, the likelihood of a spouse or a woman inheriting some money and being responsible for the estate obviously increases because women do outlive men. And so that's something to kind of think about is, how is the wealth being transferred, with the estates. So then second item is wealth gaps. So kind of looking at earnings over lifetimes. So women tend to earn a little less than men, but some of that also could be if there was some caregiving for kids or was there caregiving for family members. And
absolutely.
So there's also breaks with employment. And so kind of looking at, I found the National Women's Law Center had some information on kind of pay between men and women. And I actually it was kind of interesting. So in 2023, the difference between wages for men and women was 0.83 per every dollar. And in 2022, the difference was 0.84 per dollar. So I actually thought it'd be a little lower, but I think over time we're starting to see a little bit of a shift. And once again, there could be some of those reasons. There's different variables of why could be a wage difference there. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And so when you kind of factor that in, then women tend to maybe not save as much for retirement because maybe
they don't have as much.
They didn't have as much.
Did the article also reference different professions in terms of the wage gap?
No, it was more like a general analysis. And then, the other thing I was thinking about was, well, if you weren't working and you're caregiving or taking care of family members, well, there are ways to still put money away. So there's spousal IRAs and things that you can do that we've kind of shared in the past. So, and then also every year there's new rules with IRAs and Roths and 401ks and retirement plans that you can do catch-up contributions.
Absolutely.
So I think there's ways to kind of adapt or look at how can I save a little more.
How can I catch up?
Exactly. So third item is widowhood and wealth transfer responsibility. So widows often inherit wealth tax-free, and that's due to the unlimited marital deduction. And so as we've seen with some clients over the last few years, it seems, there's been a lot of individuals selling homes and buying new homes and kind of asking a lot of tax questions too.
And I will jump in and talk about tax strategies for transferring wealth. You've got your 3 points, right?
You're good.
So I think one of the first steps when you're talking about successful wealth transfer planning is identifying what your actual legacy goals are. Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about goals together with our clients, and there are various tax efficient strategies such as annual gifting, Roth IRA Roth IRA conversions and irrevocable trust. So I just want to touch on annual gifting as my first point. And so oftentimes people say, well, how much can I give away every year tax-free? So there is something called the annual gift tax exclusion. And so for 2025, this is $19,000. It used to be $10,000, and it was indexed for inflation, so it's gone up every year. And that's per donee. So you can basically give up to $19,000, and it's not included. You don't have to file any paperwork. And if you're married, you can gift up to $38,000. So you can give it to your kids. You can give it to a friend, anybody on the street, you can give up to $19,000 annually. And the thing that's good to know about this is that it does reduce your overall federal lifetime exemption. So anything above the $19,000,
you have to report.
You have to reduce your federal lifetime exemption.
Well, and then there's some talk about some changes for
absolutely, and so that's what people really need to be prepared for, is that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was implemented at the end of 2017, and it's set to sunset at the end of this year, 2025. And so right now, the current federal estate tax exemption amount is $13.99 million per person. And as you mentioned, for spouses, that the money can pass between spouses, and that doesn't impact that estate exemption amount. But it's set to expire at the end of this year and go to, it's indexed for inflation, so they're thinking it's going to go down somewhere between $5 and $7 million. So clearly that's a huge difference. And so it's time to do some planning if you think that your taxable estate's going to be over that 13 or the $5 million. Yeah.
So basically then, if you are doing more than that annual amount, then you have these exclusions, and you just have to document with your tax
Correct.
return.
You have to file gift tax returns if you give more than the $19,000. But there are a couple little carve-outs and exceptions to the rule, as it always is with the tax code. And so if, let's just say you have either maybe children or grandchildren that you want to help with college. So there is something called a 2503E gift, which basically means if you want to pay for your grandchild's college tuition and you pay it directly to the school, so it doesn't count, room and board is not part of it, but it's tuition. That doesn't count as part of your annual gift. So you can actually give them $19,000, then you can, let's just say their tuition's $70,000. You can pay that directly to the college or university, and then this doesn't touch any of your federal exemption. It doesn't. It's not part of the gift tax at all.
So it's not part of the $19,000 exclusion.
Correct.
It's not part. Okay, that's interesting.
So and then there's one other thing that you can do in terms of direct payments is if, for instance, you have an elderly parent, and let's just say you have a very large estate and your parent doesn't, you can help pay for their medical expenses, and or if you have another family member who has medical expenses, if you're paying for those qualified medical expenses and you pay it directly to the medical provider, then that doesn't count either. And so
that's the caveat. You got to pay direct.
You have to pay it directly.
And
Correct.
then you can't come back later and say, I want this deduction, or I don't. I want it to count.
Correct. Yeah. So those are a couple of ways to take advantage of annual gifting and getting money out of your taxable estate.
So another item that comes up is we touched on was caregiving, and so there are times where we are taking care of elderly parents and potentially either reducing your hours of work, or maybe you're retired and you're helping. And there are times where what we see occasionally is sometimes these elderly parents, they want to gift a property or they want to gift something to their kids. And, once again, we always say, let's review the tax part of it, because there's tax consequences or things to factor in on the estate.
Absolutely. And when you're looking at inheritances, you really need to understand what assets you're inheriting and how they are taxed. So, there's cash, there's investments, there's properties, and each of those you have to look at separately. And so with a property, and you also need to look at, is this asset in a living trust, or is it in an irrevocable trust?
Which is a big difference
It's
on
a
the
huge,
taxes.
yeah, absolutely. And so there are tax planning techniques where it makes sense to transfer an asset into an irrevocable trust before someone passes away, because that asset then is shielded from being part of the taxable estate. But if you put it in the irrevocable trust, then you don't get what's called a stepped up basis. And so just kind of coming back to understanding the character of assets, if you inherit an asset that is appreciated and is not in an irrevocable trust, your investment in that, let's just say, is what the fair market value was on the date of death. So you don't, if you turn around and sell it right away, you don't end up paying any taxes.
So there's definitely
there's a lot of planning that goes.
And so that's why it's important to take advantage of some of the tax strategies. We do provide a lot of financial education, so we're big on getting women used to talking about money, and even if they're still married, we want to have these conversations with you now. And so we talk about in the past where all of us have access to the same information, but
there aren't any secrets.
Yeah, and so do you know, or do you need help? And that's what we're here for, is to really guide you and make sure that you're not missing any opportunities. And there could be ways that you could, title your assets or have different structures in place. And we talked about some of the gift exemptions to consider.
I think it's very, very important to build your team.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to have not just a CFP, a certified financial planner, but an estate planning attorney. You may need a real estate agent if you're inheriting property. You want to make sure that you've got the right people in your corner and your court, so that you're not overlooking potential pitfalls, and not just the benefits, but also the pitfalls can really bite you if you're not working with a qualified professional.
So we are seeing a change in kind of wealth transfer, and there is a big, massive wealth transfer coming where it's called the Great Wealth Transfer. And women are poised to inherit trillions of dollars in the next couple of decades. And so with this, knowing this, and once again, sometimes you think, oh, that's somebody else, or that's down the line or in the future. But it is important to know and educate. And once again, that's why, like you mentioned, have a great team in place. And we're happy to be a resource. If you want us to review your current situation, or you just want to chat, we're happy to offer a complimentary strategy session. You can reach us at 760-692-5700. That's 760-692-5700. So I know we covered a lot today. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things changing all the time. And, once again, that's why we're here, to be a resource for you. And we appreciate you joining us today. And thank you for getting savvy about your finances. And remember to savvy up. Please stay tuned for important disclosures. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results, and the indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional. Savvy Woman Wealth Management is a registered investment advisor with the SEC.